All right, folks, we are here. Another nice new edition of Celtics Beat. And of course, the play-in tournament as it concerns the Celtics, that is over. It's all about the playoffs now. 7-seed C's will match up with, of course, as fate would have it, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and the Brooklyn Nets. We will dive into all of it and so much more. Evan Valenti is here. He's always here. I'm always here, Adam Kaufman. But it's not often that we get to be joined by true greatness. No disrespect to our previous guests, but how many of them are Hall of Famers? Like this man is
That's
about
right.
to be. Mike Gorman, longtime television voice of the Celtics. Of course, Kurt Gowdy Award recipient in the months to come. Congratulations, sir, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. It's having Kurt Gowdy and me in the same sentence seems like a mistake by somebody. So that's a real kick for me, because he was a Red Sox announcer when I was a kid. And
yeah,
you'd go to bed at night and listen to games on the radio, and you'd hear Ned Martin and Jim Woods, who were terrific, and then you get a TV game, and it was Kurt. Yeah, I remember those days very well, and I remember the announcers very well.
Well, we've been very fortunate around here, Mike, generations of broadcasters across all the sports, obviously, to have some real legends, whether, it's Kurt Gowdy, it's Gil Santos,
Bob Wilson, Fred Cusick.
Yeah, a
go
whole
way
bunch.
Back, yeah.
But without question, I'm sure it's hard for you to say, being the humble person that you are, but rest assured, Mike Gorman is very much in that sentence. So this right here is a long time coming as far as I'm concerned. Not just that, I mean, obviously your very good friend, the late great Tommy Heinsohn, who, as we know, is not unlike Bill Russell going into this class with you as a coach. He is Russell's about to be the fifth, Heinsohn being one of them, of people that are in the Hall of Fame in two categories. Not many people in there as players and coaches. And I mean, Tommy should have been in there, as far as I'm concerned, years ago as a broadcaster as well, and been what I imagine to be the first 3-time recipient. So it's just, this whole thing must be so special for you.
Yeah, it really is. And I certainly wish Tommy was here. He will be there in spirit. And I probably will have a few things to say during my acceptance speech to Tommy's voice speaking. Yeah, I look forward to the day. But it's a great honor for me, and I really, really appreciate it individually. And it makes me smile when I go to sleep at night over the last week and a half. But I got to get Tommy in there with me, because the last 40 years have been Mike and Tommy. They weren't Mike doing the games. They weren't Tommy doing the games. They were Mike and Tommy. And that's how if I had my brothers, that's how I would have gone into the Hall of Fame, as Mike and Tommy, the two of us going in together. But I didn't. And I'm flattered by the way people have reacted to me being eligible. It's been probably the second best experience that has come as a result of this, is I'm hearing from people I haven't heard from in 30 years, who are all over the world, literally, and read about this, and we are back in touch again with people again that I haven't spoken with in 30, 40 years. So that's a real kick. I look forward to getting up in the morning and see what's in my email.
I know you've talked about this on NBC as well, but is it extra special, especially on the heels of Kevin Garnett going in just days ago? Your class it has such a Celtics feel to it. Not only Bill Russell, who I mentioned, but who you've talked about, your favorite Celtic all time to watch, at least during your years calling games, Paul Pierce, to go in with him as part of this class as well.
Yeah, that's crazy good. It could have been a whole different experience if somebody from the Houston Rockets and the Denver Nuggets was going in, and the writer was from the Los Angeles Times or something like that. But we've got a good core group of Celtics. Danny Ainge sent me an email. Just said the new big three: Gorman, Pierce, and Russell. Not like that necessarily in that order. Yeah, it's gonna be a great day. I can't wait to experience it. I can't wait for my family to see it. And I can't wait to be part of the Hall of Fame that, a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, if I have a grandchild, I could walk through the Hall of Fame and just say, that's me up there. That'd be kind of cool.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, to call it kind of cool, it doesn't even begin to cover it. But this, we could go on for hours just talking about that and hear a lot of great stories, some of which you've shared with us on this podcast in the past. But let's, I guess, for the Celtics, the team living in the here and now, off this play-in tournament and beating the Wizards. Now, just your overarching thoughts, not on specifically that game and the win over Washington, but the play-in tournament in general. I know it's been successful for the NBA with regard to what the league was going for, the branding, the marketing, the interest, additional markets, who maybe wouldn't have otherwise had a rooting interest this time of year as compared to past years with the traditional format. And I get it, and it's not going anywhere. I'm sure the league looks at it as a resounding success, but I just don't find it necessary, Mike, at all. I think that you already have more than half the league going into the playoffs. Do we really need this time of year 20 out of 30 teams, being in contention versus your 16? But and especially since I really expect the kind of the chalk to play out, especially there in the West, where it's fun to see the Lakers and Warriors go head to head in this play-in game. But let's be honest, they're both probably coming out of the play-in tournament, going to the postseason anyway. How do you view this whole approach by the league?
Well, I didn't think I was going to like it. I do like it now, though, that it's happened. I like the fact that it's kept more teams focused longer than perhaps they may have been during the season. We don't hear any talk really of teams tanking. And I think the idea that they can still get into the playoffs if they're the 9th or 10th team is good. It keeps 4 teams paying attention that weren't paying attention before. And that's a good thing. I know Adam Silver is a big fan of the in-season soccer tournaments. He's a soccer fan, and that's long been a tradition over in Europe, that they interrupt their seasons with these little week-long tournaments. So how they be set up in the NBA, I don't know, but I think that's one thing that's on Adam's back burner that he would probably like to see done. So this play-in tournament is a first. And, I don't know. How have you found it? I have found a lot of people don't really care one way or the other what's going on in the playing tournament. So I think it's been a success for a lot of people in the business. I'm not sure how many viewers it's drawn from outside.
Yeah, I don't know what the ratings have looked like, and Evan, certainly want your opinion as well. I just think it's the ramp up toward the end of the regular season that was nice, and people were paying more attention to it. I just think the games ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Like the Celtics, whether they were the 7 or the 8, as we know, they're not favored to win in the first round, and they finish where their seed was, number 7. They'll face Brooklyn. We'll get into that matchup. Whether it's the Wizards or the Pacers coming out of the game tonight as we talk, they're not going to beat the Sixers. I'd be shocked. And then over in the West, again, the chalk is going to play out. Like, you're going to have the Lakers in the playoffs. You're going to have the Warriors in the playoffs. It's not going to be the Grizzlies. As we know, it's not the Spurs. You could make a compelling case for, the top 3 seeds in the West potentially going down in the first round of the playoffs, but that's not the play-in tournament. That's just the way the seeding shook out with all the Lakers injuries during the year, and the fact that the Warriors, were Steph and almost nobody else. I just don't think it's sort of added, and I guess I'm being a contrarian here based on what you've seen all over social media that's fallen in love with the play-in tournament. I just kind of think it's unnecessary, really. It not a lot is going to come out of it that was required.
Well, I think Mike hit it on the head. I think one of the biggest things it does is it de-incentivizes tanking. I think that's what the league was trying to do. They don't want another Philadelphia 76 situation where you throw out a team of guys that really don't belong on the floor, starting together, and they want to avoid that. So I think they've done that with the lottery reform, and that I think they've handled that particular problem. But I'll tell you, last night was great theater, and I think a lot of people enjoyed the fact that for a couple of days, I know the NBA liked it because they were part of the news cycle for a long time. You have this LeBron versus Steph showdown for, one team gets into the play-in tournament, the next team, was one loss away from going home for the season. And last night, I mean, look, a couple of games, the 2 Eastern Conference games, although, the season in Washington was a good game. Boston wins, going away late. Tatum drops 50 points. It was at least fun for me to watch, but it was really mostly about the LeBron versus Steph show that the NBA got to pump up for a couple of days. And I haven't seen the ratings for that particular game yet, but I got to assume they were probably out of control because the entire internet on Twitter last night was pretty focused on that. And it was a good game. I mean, you had right before the half, Steph Curry dribbling through 3 guys with a 30-foot fall away at the buzzer. And then LeBron comes down the other end at the end of the game and banks one in. And so, you'll get Fox Sports 1 this morning. I mean, you got, Nick Wright's already on TV talking about it. I'm sure Get Up this morning on ESPN was talking about it. First Take this morning was talking about it. It was great. It did exactly what they want to do. More eyes in the NBA at the end of the season when people normally don't care. I mean, look, at the end of the season, last day of the season, who's really watching? not a lot of people. Guess what? Now people might be more inclined to watch. Mike's take of, de-incentivizes tanking is probably one of the biggest reasons why they did it. But it's every once in a while you'll get the LeBron versus Steph or a Dame versus so-and-so, and it'll be a great, show for some people. And now you look at the Western Conference, and LeBron gets to take on Chris Paul. That's a potential upset there. I don't know if the Warriors will end up beating Utah, but they played extremely well last night, especially defensively, and they hung with a really good Lakers team for the entire game, and Steph was tremendous. So I don't know. I like it. I think it's fine. And I hope we get to see some other outcomes of it, but I wouldn't touch it yet. I don't think it's going anywhere considering the ratings of it either, Mike.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I do feel that getting to see Tatum drop 50 on somebody, that made it worthwhile right there. Just for if you're a Celtic fan. As a Celtic fan, you've been looking for things to hold on to. And that's something to hold on to see him in a situation like that. To get a chance as a basketball fan to see Bradley Beal healthy and playing, to see Westbrook playing. They're a very talented team. They're a fun to watch basketball team where the ball flies around because of Westbrook. So these are things we wouldn't see. They would have been gone into the night because they didn't make the playoffs, and that would have been the end of Washington. Instead, they have a chance to still stay alive here. No, they don't. They're gone. No, they're alive. Right?
No, if they
got to play the Pacers.
They got to play the Pacers tonight. They get.
By the way, I didn't see a box score. How'd the Pacers get 144 points without LeVert?
A lot of Sabonis. He although he didn't go for a crazy number of points, he had a big double-double and then an assist away from a triple-double. It's just really balanced offensive attack. Pretty much everybody did that.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It's funny. I stumbled on them about a week ago. I was just clicking through the league pass, and I ended up watching about a quarter and a half, and they got a lot of guys I never heard of that are pretty good.
Yeah.
a lot of guys between about 6'4" and 6'8" who play hard, who defend, who push the pace of the game, and are not afraid to take shots. So I was stunned when I saw 144 points go up on the board. Again, those are things that this players tournament have gave us a chance to get a look at that maybe we would never have seen. Certainly wouldn't be saying I want to see the Indiana Pacers play one more regular season game. But then you go, oh, look at what they got. That guy's pretty good. That guy's pretty good. So again, if you're a hoop junkie, it's good stuff. That's really what it comes down to. If you're a casual fan, you don't even know what's going on.
You mentioned Jayson Tatum's 50 points, and it was a great game, obviously. In fact, the third time he's gone for 50 in the last month and a half, not even. So he's, I hesitate to say he's coming into his own because I think that would be doing him a disservice putting it that way. But, there's all this debate now, like, is he a superstar? Is he not? And I've been, for the last couple of years, sort of classified him as a budding superstar. To me, he's not quite a superstar yet, but he will be. And that, goes without saying. So the debate as to that line between all-star, superstar, like, honestly, who cares? And Tatum kind of said the same thing when he was asked about it. He said, I have the respect of my teammates, coaches, peers. Like, I don't really care how you classify me. And, James Harden, others are asked about it. And this is, as we know, especially with Jaylen Brown out, this is the focal point for the Celtics, not just in this series, but anytime. This is Tatum's team. What I wonder, in part to that anyway, in terms of, what you think his ceiling is, also, you had said, just in the last few weeks, whenever it was on Boston Radio 98.5, that you questioned his level of leadership, that of Brown's as well, and it wasn't a dig on them as much as it was just these guys are young. Maybe you need some 10-year vets around them to kind of help out in that category. What do you expect from these guys in terms of carrying them to the level you want to reach? I don't know. Have you thought more about those comments and what his level of leadership is as you've watched what he's done in recent weeks?
Yeah, it was never so much that I was referring to a level of leadership. It was simply the fact that I don't think you can be a leader unless you have experience in whatever it is you are leading people from that position. And I don't know how much experience. I know he's been in the league 4 years, but I don't know how much of that you can have at 23 years old. I mean, and I don't want to take that away from him. Let him be a 23-year-old. Let him be. You've got a family, Adam. You know what it's like to see him running around with his son on the basketball court. That makes you feel good. Makes you feel good about him. So let him worry about being a good dad. And let him worry about being a good shooter, I guess. I don't know, but just a good person, and let him grow up and not put the leadership. I asked, it was a great quote. I asked a friend of mine who played in the league and for a long time, and I asked him about what it's like to be the captain of a team. He says, like having 11 kids, and you gotta just pay attention to every one of those kids like it's the most important relationship you have with that kid, and it's tiring and it wears you out, and you're not doing the things that you want to do in your life because you're doing the things for other people's lives. That's fine if you're Tristan Thompson and you're 32 years old, 33 years old. That's fine if you're Marcus Smart, even though he's kind of young. I think he's like about 27, 28, but he's been around forever. I think those are the guys you want to be the quote leader. Who's going to take the last shot on the court? Of course Tatum's going to take the last shot. Who's going to get the ball and put up 25 to 30 shots a game? Tatum's going to do that. I got no problem with any of that. What I had a problem with when I went off that morning on Toucher and Rich was I just thought that with both the Jays, they were becoming ball stoppers. And the ball would move around and they get to them and they would take a quick look and they didn't make that next pass into the corner. They spun around and it became these one-on-ones. Jalen on this side, Jayson on this side of the court, and they just tried to take them in one-on-one to the basket. And that became a very boring offense to watch. It wasn't much fun to watch. And it didn't do them any favors. And I think if you're going to, which I think you can, but if you're going to start talking about Jayson as a superstar, one thing that superstars do is they make other people around them better. And he's not there yet in that particular category. Okay, as a scorer, as apparently a father, in all other things, I can see he gets exceptionally high grades. But he's got to learn how he can take these wonderful skills that he has and turn them into something that enables him to make the guys around him better. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe you think he does make people around him better. He gets people open shots when he decides he wants to pass it, but passing is not the first inclination that he has.
Well, yeah,
which is okay.
And he's learning though. It's like he comes from this, the new era of AAU basketball. That's a lot of one-on-one. What you can do and break down your guy off the dribble, and that's primarily the life he's been in for a long time. Yeah. This is the first time, and I said this at the beginning of the year. I've said this countless times in this show. This is really the first time Jayson Tatum has been asked to really be more of a facilitator than ever before. I mean, he's obviously, and look, I go back to the same quote that Dwayne Wade said on TNT months ago. Jayson Tatum can make any shot he takes on the floor. I don't care what he does. He's made that shot 1,000 times at least. The thing that Jayson has to do is pick his spots of like, okay, we are in a rut right now. Offensively, nothing's going in. I got to take, I can be a little selfish here, and I have to get us on the board and get us some momentum, so that way we can go back to the other end of the floor and get a stop. And finding ways to make his teammates better is a huge part of that, and keeping guys engaged is a huge part of that. So what he's doing is he's learning how to, okay, here comes a double team. Ball's got to be here at this time. The one thing I'll say about Tatum that I've noticed over the past couple of weeks, the free throw thing is big. But he's making quicker decisions. Like when that double team comes, don't sit and wait for it to get there. Try and make a move quicker to make life for your teammates better. Because, at the end of the day, the ball may end up finding you again, and usually if it ends up finding you again, you're probably open for something, or, you can go with 5 seconds left, break the guy down. So, with Tatum, it's going to take time. And I say this all the time. He's only 23. Steph Curry didn't win a ring until he was 27, 26. LeBron didn't win one until way late. These things take time. Not everybody's going to be able to win a ring right away. But the talent is obviously there. This season has been a learning season for him. In this postseason, without Jaylen Brown, we'll see with everybody else. Marcus has been banged up. Rob Williams, we'll see. But there's going to be a lot of offensive attention, put on his shoulders. So this postseason, and we all assume, I think it's going to be relatively quick. This could be another great teaching moment for Jayson in terms of what he needs to do when the games really matter and how he can elevate the level of his team, against what is going to be a really unbelievably difficult opponent to face.
Yeah. And I agree with 99% of what you said. And I think you add 5 years to Tatum's life right now and make him 28, and then he's a perfect captain of your basketball team because he's your best player. He's been there now. He understands what winning and losing is all about. He understands whatever has happened during those 5 years, how far the Celtics got or didn't get, and what he has to do to take them further. Then he's ready at 28. He's at the peak of his game and the peak of his skills, and then he's ready to be the captain of the team. So it's the same thing you can say about Jaylen Brown. Can they both do it here? I hope so. But he's the same guy. 4 years from now, I mean, we know what kind of a leader he is off the court. He's going to be a very strong presence in whatever locker room he's calling home. But again, don't do this to these kids at 22 or 23. Let the Tristan Thompsons of the world take that job.
Let's talk about this series begrudgingly, because Mike, I'll be candid with you. I mean, as you know, I love the Celtics, but I was not looking for them to beat the Wizards the other night, because I just wanted. It wasn't like, oh, you're rooting against them tonight. I wanted nothing to do with the Nets in round one, and it's not even because of how offensively potent they are, and obviously it's just an obscene amount of talent. Even though they don't play defense, they can score the ball like crazy. It was just I can't stomach, losing in ugly fashion, getting swept or losing in 5 to Kyrie Irving, in part, and also to the Nets team that, you made that trade with, that we were laughing for years at Brooklyn, and now they've lapped you at this point. It's not necessarily through fault of the Celtics. Some things, including Kyrie, have gone wrong along the way, and Gordon Hayward and the injuries, and a number of different things. Obviously, there's been some bad luck in addition to some roster mismanagement at points as well. And we've spent an extensive amount of time on this show in the past talking about that, including with Gary Washburn really dissecting it on last week's show. But this is the matchup nobody wanted. I think it's going to be very painful to watch. In some ways, I think I might have been happier watching this team land in the lottery and just losing in the play-in than what this series against Brooklyn could wind up looking like. Can you make me feel better?
Well, I do think there is one way for the Celtics to win the series, and that is for Brooklyn to implode. And I don't think that's out of the question. Durant, Harden, and Kyrie have not played a lot of minutes together. They certainly have not played meaningful minutes together. And it's going to be interesting. Harden is the key, I think, to the whole thing, because Harden's going to control the ball and where the ball goes. And can he keep Kyrie happy? Can he keep Durant happy? Can he keep himself happy? Who's going to take the big shot? Is it automatically going to be Durant, or is it going to be the ball never gets beyond Kyrie, or does James Harden get it back and shoot it himself, which he's done very well in his career? So anyway, in terms of talent, they got tons of talent. They seem to have good coaching. Steve Nash has turned out to be a pretty good coach in his first go around. So again, I think the only way for them to lose is if they suddenly just implode and they lose a game, they steal a game. The Celtics steal a game early. One of the first 2 in Brooklyn would be ideal. And then I'll have them really start thinking about how good they are and how they're going to win games. And that'll be interesting to see. Can the Celtics just go out and beat them 145 to 140? I don't think so. It's going to take 60 out of Jayson for that to happen.
So that being said, how do you expect this to play out?
I'd like to see the Celtics get one game. My guess 5, 6 at the most. And again, unless these guys implode, or unless these guys suddenly decide they don't want to play on a particular game for whatever reason, because it's raining outside. I don't know, but they seem to come up with a lot of reasons all season long to not show up. So
just 8 total games together, these 3.
Yeah. And what was the record?
That I don't know. I'd have
to pull
that up. It's a good question.
I think it's less than 500.
Surprising.
But yeah,
they could. The injury thing's always going to be there, and with Durant and how he's nursed his Achilles back, and Kyrie's had a litany of injury problems as we know about, and Harden, who's kind of reliable, but in the playoffs has been kind of a no-show, pending on the year. It could be very interesting. Again, I'm with you guys. I'm not sure if it's going to go too far. I think just the offensive firepower. You talk about who do you stop, and Harden's, is the guy you key in on because he has the ball, but stopping him isn't easy. I got asked the other night, what defensively would you do? And I was like, I'm not sure if I'm really qualified to answer this question. But I would tell you that not one single thing is going to work. You're going to have to be multiple. You're going to have to make them guess and make them think and slow them down a little bit. Because if they're playing at a high pace, you're definitely not going to win. You have to slow them down. You have to make them think. And even if it's, you go to a zone, you go to some sort of trap or a box one or something, and just make them slow down, look at everything, think for a minute, and maybe you can steal a couple of possessions here and there. It's going to be a numbers game. Tatum's going to have to be out of his mind. Kemba's going to have to play the way Kemba's been playing recently. You need a big Fournier.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, and you have Kyrie not calling out, but Kyrie wants the Kemba Walker matchup, and that'll be fun. But they're going to need some contributions from other guys, and they're going to probably need some contributions from some of the younger guys that just got here. I mean, Neesmith's been fantastic. You're going to need that energy, especially if they don't have Robert Williams. Peyton Pritchard, the way he picks guys up, 3/4 court or full court. I love that. I love just seeing somebody just be a pest for 18 to 20 minutes he's on the floor. They're going to need all that stuff. And then a little bit of luck here and there too, to have a chance. I'm with you guys, 6 games at the most. But I want to see them play well. I really don't care the result. I would like just to see what we saw against Washington the other night, where I saw an engaged team for 48 minutes. And a team that brought energy, they had little lapses here and there, but we didn't see that all year. We didn't see a team that was fully engaged.
Never. They never seem to have a sense of urgency about anything. They did against Washington, obviously, the other night, and I hope they can continue to play that way. That will at least make this series competitive. If they don't play that way, these guys will beat the Celtics by 40 because they have so much firepower. But I really don't see that happening. One thing that, not to make excuses for the Celtics, but nobody's talking about the fact that Jaylen Brown is gone. And Jaylen is not like a 15-point per game guy. He's a 25-point per game guy. That's a ton of points that we're losing. That is very difficult with the current roster we have to make up. Fournier is going to have to play a big role. And he has played well of late, so I think that's going to be a help.
Jaylen does a decent job on Durant, if I remember, as well. He's not afraid of taking that matchup, even though Durant's, this other world scorer. I believe he's held his own recently against Durant.
Yeah, Walker and Fournier, though, have to play well. And have to be 20 to 30-point scorers in each game, and then let Jayson go for 35 and add him up at the end and see what happens. But the problem with these guys, when you add them up at the end, they have 150 or something like that.
Well, to that end, I know a lot of people when the full schedule came out last night, people were griping about how spread out it is, and in some cases 2 days between games. But I mean, that actually works in the Celtics' favor. Certainly works in Kemba Walker's favor. The fact that he already, as we knew, wasn't playing back-to-backs, and it's not like there were back-to-backs in the playoffs, but more time you can give him to stay fresh and be that guy that's gone out and lately consistently scored 30 points. That's, you're going to need him to be that guy, to everybody's point here. On Kyrie Irving, just, with a few more things to get to before we let you get out of here. I don't know if you caught the comments that he made yesterday or the day before about, he and Kevin Durant in particular finally having this opportunity to realize what they signed on to do when they both went to the Nets. And it was very typical Kyrie being Kyrie and talking around a lot of things, not giving straight answers, but saying that, it's going to be, could be 10, 20 years before he and KD are given the credit for their vision and coming to, because I don't know if you know this, Mike, that Kyrie Irving invented the super team. So, it's going to be a decade or two before he gets the credit for all of this coming together. But, was asked, he basically volunteered why it didn't work out in previous stops, and there have only been a couple, Celtics and Cavs.
Why didn't it work out in Boston?
Well, he said he wasn't able to be himself. He's he battling friction with teammates. He wasn't happy. He wasn't having fun, and it's just at a certain point in time. And I heard Sean Grande say this once. I'm paraphrasing the quote, but it was that age-old, if you're always pointing fingers at what a bad roommate you have, no matter how many people you live with, eventually, you're the bad roommate. And I think, there's a lot of truth in that when it comes to Kyrie Irving, but he can't resist. He can't stay away.
No, he can't. People say you didn't like Kyrie Irving. I loved Kyrie Irving on the court. Because as a play-by-play guy, he had one of the best handles you ever saw. He made big shots, which gave you a chance to make good calls. It's just that off the court, he was just such a angry, troubled young man while he was here in Boston. I mean, he just went south and never came back. So again, I don't want to go to dinner with Kyrie. I just want to see him play. I do think the Celtics will do well to let all three of these guys play and not be looking for injuries, not be looking for excuses. Just go out and beat these three guys if you possibly can. Certainly, the feeling of urgency will be there tomorrow night rather. One, because it's a national televised game and they all know that. But two, they have not been a popular team in Boston. They could really turn some heads in the next 2 or 3 weeks if they ever took these guys 6 or 7 games and became heroes again in Boston going into next year. That would be the best thing that could come out of this series. Not necessarily beating the Nets. I don't know if you can do that, but you can scare the living daylights out of them. That would give fans a chance to re-examine how they feel about this team.
In your estimation, what does the future need to be in an ideal world for Boston? I mean, Danny Ainge is asked about it constantly. Dan Shaughnessy had a conversation with him just the other day where Danny effectively said, at least, intimated that he's running it back. He said he's not going anywhere. Brad's not going anywhere. The Jays aren't going anywhere. He didn't mention Smart by name or Kemba or the potential of re-signing Fournier, but he's addressed all of this in the past, and he has said, our best players are coming back. Is that you've watched this team, you've seen the lack of fight, the lack of urgency that you talked about, the fact that this was, unquestionably in terms of effort and consistency and defensively, all of it, this is the worst we've ever seen them under Brad Stevens. And injuries played a role. Yeah. COVID played a role. There are some built-in, I don't want to call them excuses because they're not excuses when they're reality. There are built-in factors that contributed to the way they finished out this year and went 500 over the course of the season before the playoffs here. But is running it back the answer to you, or do they need to make some significant changes?
Well, fans always want them to make trades, and get good players, but they don't want to give up good players. And you're not going to be able to do that. So if you're going to get in the trade market, we're going to have to earmark some people as being tradable. Marcus Smart is obviously tradable. Jaylen Brown certainly would be tradable. I don't think we want to trade him, but I think he would be very tradable in the sense you could get quality back. And that's the thing that I think fans expect Danny to somehow through free agency, somehow through the draft, come up with these winning players. And I think his record is pretty good. They're just all too young right now. Certainly Brown and Tatum were excellent back-to-back draft picks. Now you just got to fill in with the people around him. We need a big who can shoot. It's too bad we had to get rid of Tice because I think he filled that role pretty well, but that was a salary thing. But I think we need to find another Tice type of player, a big who can shoot, and we need a point guard. Maybe it's Pritchard. But when Marcus and Kemba start in the backcourt, there's no point guard on the floor. There's a great defender at one position. There's a great scorer at the other position who's a two guard. At least when I grew up, we would call him a two guard. So in my order of importance would be a big who can shoot and pass and a point guard. And if not, go find a point guard, then say to Pritchard, this is your job. Let's see what you can do with it. And I think right now, I would tell you, I think Pritchard's going to have a long and profitable NBA career and as a backup point guard. Will he get a chance to be a starting point guard? Well, maybe Boston turns out to be the place that he will be. But he's a guy who you look at, you see his work ethic, you see everything he does, how he plays every night, and you go like, let's get him on our roster here, and then if we find a superstar point guard, then he becomes the backup, but he's our guy. So Pritchard, I think, is in there for the long haul with this team. Neesmith, I think, is in there for the long haul. Certainly surprised the daylights out of me in terms of his athletic ability. I remember draft night, Jay Billis going on and on about he's the best shooter in college basketball. So I just hadn't seen that much tape of him, and there wasn't much because of the pandemic. So I had this vision of this kind of European kind of guy standing in the corner waiting for the ball, shooting shots. And then Neesmith comes flying out of the rafters. He's in the middle of every loose ball. He's extremely athletic. I had no idea he would be this athletic, which is not a long suit traditionally of the Celtics. So, I think he's a stick, and Rob is a stick. Rob Williams, if you can't find a place for Rob Williams on your team, there's something wrong with you. He can rebound, he can block shots. He seems to be able to follow instructions well. He seems like he gets hurt a little bit, but that's because I think he's athletic and he's taking chances with his body a lot. So I think he's a keeper. I think Pritchard's a keeper. I think Neesmith is a keeper. But given all that, you'd rather find a free agent than you'd rather find something in the draft, because you're not going to say, I don't want to mention any guys' names, but guys who are down the lower end of the Boston bench, you're not going to be able to trade them for someone who's going to come and start for you. It doesn't work that way, unless you're getting somebody else's headache, and then you don't want to do that either. So I think we'll be better next year. I don't know whether the players need to change in terms of how they react to Brad, or Brad needs to change how he reacts to players. But certainly this was not encouraging in terms of spirit on this basketball team. And people saw through it very quickly and didn't like this team. So that's where I think the opportunity is for the Celtics, and the mandate is for the Celtics, is to get better and get likable at the same time.
Well, Mike, I know you've got a role, so I'll leave it with this. The Hall of Famer, in just a matter of months, and eager for that speech, another all-time great, Marv Albert, has decided to hang him up. Now, he's further along, obviously, than you are, but how long will Celtics fans be able to listen to Mike Gorman?
Oh, I don't know. I'd like to think till there's I'd like to do one more parade. That'd be good.
That sounds pretty good to me. Sooner the better. Mike Gorman, again, Hall of Famer. It has a nice ring to it. Thanks so much for joining us, as always.
Thank you, guys. Let's do it again after the first round. We'll see what happens.
Hi, guys. Cedric Maxwell here. I want to take a minute to tell you about Marigold Medical. I'm used to keeping my body in great shape, but with arthritis, even the most simple everyday tasks became unbearable. As soon as I called Marigold Medical, I knew I was in good hands. No drugs, no surgery, just an experienced team of caring professionals that wanted to get me back to doing the things I love. Make the call to Marigold Medical and get back to pain-free life.
Mike Gorman, always terrific, Evan.
Oh, he's the best. I mean, I got to interview Mike for the first time. It was like sort of this unbelievable feeling, because I like Mike is the only person I've listened to call Celtics games. I'm sure, Adam, you're similar here. He's been behind the mic forever. He is the voice, and this is no disrespect to Sean Grandy, who is also just tremendous and comes on the show and is I value his insight as well. But Mike is just this legendary figure that has seen so much over the years.
Yeah,
he's been there, done that for everything. I mean, you think about the broadcasters the Celtics have had over the years. I mean, Johnny Most, Mike Gorman, Sean Grandy. I mean, man, we are so spoiled as Celtics fans to have great guys that have called games. To be inducted after Mike Breen. Mike Breen is tremendous. With ESPN and the Knicks, he's amazing. And then he's going with Paul Pierce, which is really cool too. I mean, it's just really. It's surreal, and I'm thrilled for Mike. He's, I when I interviewed Mike a couple of years ago, I asked him about the Send It In Jerome call with Bill Raftery, because a lot of people remember the Send It In Jerome, but a lot of people don't remember that Mike's the guy next to him calling the game. And and he had a lot of nice words to say about Raftery at the time, and I was thinking it's the old adage with Raf. It's like Raf's got, I think he called it Irish not tendonitis.
Tourette's?
No. What's when your joints hurt? Come on. It starts with a T. I don't know. But he was like he's stiff in a different joint every night, which I thought was hilarious. But Mike's always warm and welcoming and just the best. And we're fortunate to have him along for the ride. Can't imagine anybody else calling games. And whoever has to fill those shoes, it'll probably be Sean Grandy. We'll have big shoes to fill, no question about it.
So, Evan, we won't go too much longer here. I wanted to make sure that we really maximized our time that we had with Mike. And
who wants to listen to us after that?
Yeah, people have clicked off at this point. Yeah. It's so all right. Mike's done. All right. Well,
yeah, we're done.
Let us know who you have next week. We'll see you later. Yeah. I just don't think this is going to go well. I really don't. That puts me in the majority clearly, and I guess where I was in the minority is I wasn't rooting for them to lose against the Wizards, because I can't watch the Celtics and root for them to lose. I'm not built that way. But if I had my druthers, like if you were to say, like, don't watch the game, but pick your outcome, and it's sort of semantics, I guess. I'm kind of saying the same thing, albeit differently. Is yeah, I mean, I just think I would have preferred to see them go against the Sixers, and so lose to Washington,
Who
beat
would
Indiana. That would have been more pleasurable for me.
who didn't want, like, nobody wanted the Celtics to play the Nets. I told you that was going to happen, though. I knew it was going to happen.
That just makes sense, right?
It's
It just felt
destiny
right.
that they play this Nets team. It's just destiny. And look, it's weird to root for a loss. We all wanted to play Philly just because they've owned Philly in the past. I know that might be different this year because Embiid's having an insane season and Doc Rivers is the new head coach and all that stuff. You always want to play Philly just because of the past and how well they've played against them. Rooting for a loss stinks. It's dumb, but I understood why people wanted to do it. I'll make a case, though, that, again, Boston playing Brooklyn is actually the best outcome. One,
You're channel your inner Ian Thompson here.
I got it. Well, one, and Ian had a great idea about it. Like, you want to play Brooklyn first because if they're going to be rusty, this is the only time you're going to get to play them while they're rusty, because as they keep going, they're just going to keep getting better. So there's that adage. We'll see if that holds up. And Ian was right on the money with that, I think, as a potential storyline. Another one is, look, Jayson Tatum is going to play maybe the toughest matchup he's had to play his entire life. And that's going to bring the best out of him, or it'll make him learn how to be a better player. All right. That's how do you maximize Jayson Tatum and get him to the next level? I don't know. He doesn't have too many more levels to go, but he does have a few more to go. This could be a way to propel him to the next level. And the last thing I'll say is this. If you're building a team right now in the Eastern Conference, this is the team you have to stack yourself up against. It's not Philadelphia. And look, Philly's great, but this team in Brooklyn's got way more talent than them. And again, they're only going to get better as long as they stay healthy. You're going to learn pretty quick what you'll need to beat that team. And you can be able to sit there and say to the roster, this guy's useful, this guy's not useful, this guy's, and you'll be able to kind of have a clearer picture of where you need to go in the offseason, so you're better, equipped to beat a team like that. Now, internal improvements will help, like, Jayson and Jalen getting better and guys getting healthy and COVID not being a thing. That'll be one particular way they get better, but you're going to have to make some changes, from a roster standpoint, some changes maybe from a coaching standpoint and a front office standpoint. You'll be able to know how far behind you are after this series. So I actually do think it's the best outcome because, again, all those things. And look, the way they played against Washington is the way we wanted to play the entire season. That was an inspired effort for 48 minutes. It was much better effort. The chemistry was better. They had just much better energy on the floor. So, that game brought it out of them. Maybe this particular series will bring that out of them too. I don't know. But I think if you're going to, you can't slack off against this Brooklyn team, so you have to be focused from the tip. So again, a couple of ways to, they call it a spin zone, or you're trying to make, the optimistic version of this. This is the reason why you want to play Brooklyn. That's all I got, though. I entered the chamber at this point, Adam.
Listening to Mike talk about, they obviously they could steal a game, perfect world, they could steal two, and this is something. It's funny that he brought it up because it's something that I was asked about yesterday by someone I was chatting with, like, what if the Celtics lose in 6? And my initial, maybe you feel the same way, maybe you don't, but my initial reaction, my gut was, that's maybe the worst case scenario for the Celtics, is losing in 6, because you go down to Brooklyn in 6 games without Jaylen Brown. You've presumably played well, competitive, kept games close, hopefully, maybe with an outlier in there. But, a lot of what we talked about earlier in the show, why it's bad is this reason. You could convince yourself, and I don't know that Danny Ainge even thinks this way. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's already decided what he wants to do this offseason, and what happens in this coming series doesn't mean a damn thing. But the way a lot of people are wired, reactionary, certainly social media, which is the vocal minority, I understand. They go down in 6 without Jaylen Brown. People will convince themselves, well, if we got a healthy Jaylen Brown, we got a chance to win that series. Maybe we do win that series. And then you start to think more and more about running it back next year and doing what we, talked about earlier, where we know that Danny, Brad, the Jays are going to be back. Like the only situation where Jaylen Brown is traded, and I don't think he is or should be, is in a Bradley Beal swap. Like that's the only thing I can imagine in terms of him being dealt, unless something totally unforeseen, a la the Kyrie Irving acquisition a couple of years ago, comes into play. I just don't see it. So you start to think about running it back. And well, I don't know. Down the stretch, Kemba, sure, he can't play every game, and but he won't have to sit back-to-backs every game, every time next year. Like we're a year removed from that. We've got a plan for him, and if when he does play, he's getting you 25 to 30 points, that contract's not so bad. And yeah, we'll pay into the tax for Fournier, give him whatever he wants. And Smart, you got to have him back. He's your heart and soul. He's your emotional leader. And well, look at the growth from Neesmith, and look at what Pritchard's doing. And Williams, man, I know he's hurt, but if we could only keep him on the floor. And then, well, Grant Williams, he had some meaningful minutes there against.
Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that.
I'm just saying you go guy by guy, and you can convince yourself, not all the way down the bench, but for your core rotational players, you could convince yourself in a competitive series against the Nets, albeit a loss, but a genuinely competitive series where you're kind of on the precipice of winning against arguably the top team in basketball, certainly in the Eastern Conference. No disrespect intended there, Philadelphia or Milwaukee, but you could convince yourself running it back is actually the plan, despite how uninspired they were all throughout this year. And I'm not saying a big shakeup is necessary, but you got to do something. And I'm not sure that something, whatever it is, does happen if they go out and put up a real fight against Brooklyn.
Something would have to be really, would have to be an outlier sort of situation, I think, for that to happen. You know what I mean? I think the fact of the matter is we have an entire regular season of data that suggests this team might not be, perfectly, matched up to compete night in and night out against some of these better teams. I would be shocked if a 6-game series against, again, the elite of the elites in the NBA were to drastically change their plan to say, you know what, maybe we don't have to be as aggressive. I think they all know they have to be aggressive. I don't think Danny's not a guy that, look, we give him a lot of credit, not credit, but a lot of flack for, he didn't trade for this guy. I think Danny understands that, like, this is a really pivotal point of this franchise in their direction, where they're going. Outside of a Bradley Beal trade, yeah, the Jays aren't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. They have cap implications that they understand that they are running up against. Now, if Wick's like, cool, I don't care, like, it's paying the tax, then, you can bring Fournier back and have Smart in the team and just don't care. But, like, at some point, somebody's going to go, whether it's going to be, not re-signing Fournier, or Smart gets traded, or Kemba gets traded. Some big piece is probably not back next year. What it is, I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. I've thought about it a little bit, and we've talked about how I've not talked myself into a Marcus Smart trade, but at least I understand the logic behind it. And it's just about the cap number and trying to figure out how to best manipulate that number and stay under the tax and duck all those things for as long as you can. So I understand what your point is, but I don't think being competitive with Brooklyn is going to change their plan all that much. I think they have an understanding of, like, look, you can't get suckered by this little bit of data. Although, look, you can make the flip side of, look at what Phoenix did. They went 8-0 in the bubble and decided, hey, maybe we really got to. And I made this point with people that are like, I hate the play-in tournament, or I hate this, I hate that. Look, if you're one of these teams, and maybe the Charlotte Hornets isn't a great example because they got their ass kicked and they didn't have Gordon Hayward, right? But the Phoenix Suns,
he didn't play all year,
right? The Phoenix Suns, I use Phoenix as a great example. If they don't go 8-0 in the bubble and almost make it, if they go out and get Chris Paul in the offseason, or at least are they as aggressive about it in the offseason? Maybe they're not. And maybe they're not the second seed in the West right now. So, I think in certain situations you can overreact. I don't think, regardless of what happens in the series, I think the Celtics have an offseason plan of what they want to do. I think they know what it is already. And this is just going to maybe confirm some things, or maybe clear up some things. I don't
know, wouldn't you? What's that plan?
I don't know. Can we talk, though, for a second? Because now that we're at the end of the season, because you sort of brought it up, the whole Kemba Walker minutes restriction thing and not playing him in back-to-backs. Now, there is potential that it might cause a little bit of friction and a little bit of a chemistry issue in the locker room. I don't know that. I don't think anybody knows if it did, because none of us were in the locker room this year. It's
Sure.
just a possibility.
Yeah.
But can we just say it worked? Because
Yeah.
he looks as good as he's ever looked. In that game against Washington, he was terrific. And over the past couple of weeks, he's really been a steadying force for Boston. So again, I know it was annoying. I know Kemba probably hated every second of it, especially towards the end of the season where he knew he was ready and knew he could play, but we still had to go through this whole he can't play in back-to-backs thing. Can we say it worked? Can we say it worked?
We can definitely say it worked. My issue with it, and this wasn't an issue with Kemba, and it wasn't even an issue with the plan. It was an issue with the situation and the acceptance of just like doing what you have to do, obviously, to get to this point. And obviously he's playing, and to your point, he looks as good as he's ever looked in a Celtics uniform, no doubt about it. But along the way, it really felt like the lack of continuity. Is he in? Is he out? And what's it look like when he's not there? What's the rotation? Who are the combinations? Who are the starters? And so on and so forth. Then you add in other injuries and COVID and things along those lines. It was so incredibly disruptive that it's hard to stomach the idea of going through another season of that, because I do think that played into their struggles handsomely. I mean, I think that was heavily involved.
No question. No, absolutely no question about it. I mean, if you have Kemba Walker every night and you have Kemba Walker every night, you can play the game a little bit differently. The good thing is for Boston is they knew the nights they weren't going to have them and they could kind of game plan around it. But now you have, two game plans. I don't make this like a football analogy because
it's true.
It's not really cut and dry, but everybody's like, Mac Jones and Cam Newton have to have different playbooks because they're two different types of starting quarterbacks. So it's sort of
play the same way with Kemba versus without Kemba. You couldn't.
You can't. It's impossible because he's such a great player and he commands so much attention on the offensive end that, like, again, I love Marcus Smart to death. Don't get me wrong, but when Marcus is the starting point guard versus Kemba's a starting point guard, you have two different game plans when are the opposing team. So,
or if it was Pritchard, and then you had three.
Right. Yeah,
like
and then Tremont Waters every once in a while got to start.
Like three totally different style of player and level of their career as well. It was just that had to be, again, get why they did it. They needed to do it, and clearly for specifically Kemba, it worked.
Right.
And hopefully for the team, it shows some benefit. We'll see. It helped them against Washington, sure, but what's a play and win really worth? We'll see what they do in the postseason, but and for the longevity of his career, really, that's what this is all about. And so we'll see what it looks like next year, assuming he's still in a Boston uniform, because I just don't think they're going to be able to unload him much as Danny Ainge may try or may want to.
Well, think about the stigma too, right? They trade Isaiah after he gives them everything and it cost Isaiah just an absurd amount of money. And I still feel bad about that.
Well, but nobody cost him that, like it.
Well, they misdiagnosed.
He got hurt.
He got hurt. Yeah, and he played through it. And
he got hurt and he played through it admirably.
Right. Then they traded him afterwards, which is never a good look. At least and look, it
was a terrible look for PR, or with other players around the league, but it's not like we can sit here and pretend that he would have been something different had he stayed in Boston versus what he turned out to be, with all the other subsequent stops. He was never going to be healthy.
That's fair. It's just a point of like, look, we're not, but although, if they go and just trade Kemba this offseason, being, they could go right back to the Celtics really heartless or whatever. It's like, well, they paid Kemba $30 million. It's not like you're not paying him money.
Right.
It's just a matter of they
have his contract.
They have to nurture the asset, and Kemba is potentially an asset. And we remember Devin at the beginning of the year, you couldn't trade. You couldn't call anybody to take Kemba Walker right now. Well, now, now look, you'll still have trouble moving that contract, but it's not untradeable anymore. I don't think.
No, but you'd have to give up, multiple draft picks or a player you like along with him in order.
Or take back bad salary too. So there's always that. But
right.
I just want to point out that even though it sucked to watch, and it sucked. It just sucked to watch. And again, I think it was a big problem why this team struggled this year. It worked. He looks great. He's ready for this particular series. Again, how long they'll go, we'll find out. But it definitely worked. He's playing the best he's ever played in terms of like this season, and think back to last year where he was an all-star. probably similar numbers. I'll give the edge to the All-Star caliber portion of that season just because he made the All-Star game, but it worked. It got him to this point. He looks great. He's shooting the ball well, he's scoring well. That burst is still there. He's not getting to the free throw line as much, but he gets in there. It's not like he's not getting the calls. So it's just one of those situations. So, I wasn't quite sure how it would look at the end of the year, but I'll tell you right now, it worked out really well for them, I think.
The only good redeeming thing that I can think of about the Celtics and Nets matching up in round 1, we'll get out of here in a minute or two, is that at least come game 4, and I wish this were the case for game 3, maybe the governor, maybe the state of Massachusetts can massage its new mandate here, but at least for game 4 on the 30th, May 30th, if people haven't seen the schedule, it will be a full building. It will be a full building at the TD Garden giving Kyrie Irving crap.
That place is going to be nuts.
Unfortunately, it won't be full capacity for game 3, but game 4, you will have everyone in attendance ready to dump on him for the first time. This will be the first opportunity for Celtics fans to crap all over Kyrie Irving in person, and I am eager for it. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he's going to need some sage for sure. Bad juju out of it. But look, that building's going to be crazy. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you and I, we texted about it last night, so I know you watched the Bruins game last night. But just having a few thousand people in the stands brings you a little bit of energy. In the Washington game, although hard to tell, and I don't mean to dump on TNT, but the audio setup for that game against Washington for TNT was tough. Couldn't even hear anything. It was impossible.
Marv on his Barca lounger.
Well, look, I'm not going to dump on Marv. He's had a great career.
No, I agree.
I'm happy he's finding the end of the road here. But it's just that you couldn't feel the energy. But I'm sure there's some energy there. There's going to be energy in game 3, and there's going to be a lot of energy in game 4. And I can't wait to see it because this is a team. Every team thrives off their home crowd, but this team specifically, there is a connection there. I mean, KG talks about it all the time, how Celtics fans are, they're relentless in a good way and a bad way. You'll see some of the good way, I think, come game 4, and you'll see a really supercharged building that's been dining it in there.
All right, folks, do us a solid. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to Celtics Beat. You can go to iTunes or anywhere that your podcasts are found. And while you are doing that, give us a rating, a review, preferably a 5-star rating and a kind review. But, I guess speak your mind, whatever it is.
We're going to get a 5-star rating. And if you want to make fun of me, just at least give us a 5-star rating. You can say anything you want about me. I don't really care what it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, crap all over me in the process. Just give us a 5-star rating in, on
we
iTunes.
see the comments below on the video, by the way. You guys,
we read those.
You guys are hilarious, actually. I find them funny
really
all the time. What did we get the other day? We got Teen Wolf, Chad, and Mr. Clean for Ian Thompson.
And I'm so, old and disconnected. I didn't even know what the Chad reference was.
Chad and Brad. Yeah.
What is this?
It's a diss.
What are the people saying about me? This isn't my world.
Yeah, I'll take Teen Wolf. I was Teen Wolf for Halloween one time. It worked out really well for me. So
like that.
Yeah,
but Michael J. Fox would be proud.
Oh man, one of my favorite movies. Even though you look back on it, it's a really terrible movie.
Don't say it.
It's a great movie.
Don't you say it. Teen Wolf 2 you can dump on.
Yeah, that movie's trash.
I love Jason Bateman, but it's not a good movie, and he would admit that as well. But not a bad word about the original Teen Wolf.
So good.
All right, series is getting going, folks. The if you've missed the full series along the way, here's the deal. Here's what it is because it was announced late last night. Game 1 is, of course, Saturday in Brooklyn. Game 2 is Tuesday, also in New York. So a couple games between those two series after a couple more days of rest. Good for Kemba. We'll shift back to Boston Friday, May 28th. That's 1 week from tomorrow as we sit here right now. Sunday, May 30th with a full building at the Garden. Those are the 4 games that we know about with certainty. After that, it becomes, the if necessary category. And that's Game 5, Tuesday, June 1st, back in Brooklyn. In Boston for Game 6, Thursday, June 3rd. And Saturday, June 5th at Brooklyn for a potential Game 7. Now, will it get that far? It's highly unlikely, but the idea of the Celtics playing June basketball, I like it. It makes me feel like they're a lot farther along than they actually are, but hey, that's okay. You know, round one June basketball is fine with me. I'm good with it.
Same. I'm not going to complain.
Nets in 5. That's where you're landing here.
Yeah, it could be 4.
Me too.
I'll give him a gentleman's sweep, though. I'll give the C's 1 game.
All right. Well, thanks to Mike Gorman, the Hall of Famer. Again, a nice ring to it, and always great having him on. We'll take him up on that. We'll have him back after round 1, and you know, whether we're doing an autopsy on the season or a preview of round 2 in a perfect world with a very different tone for the show. Either way, we'll get him back and we'll talk again. He's Evan Valenti. I'm Adam Kaufman. Thanks for being with us, folks. We'll catch you next time on Celtics Beat.